Do not come home. You are an embarrassment. My father said it like a diagnosis, not a sentence. Then, 5 long years of silence. My name became a ghost in the Whitmore house, a smudge on a portrait in a hallway of perfect men. I built my life anyway, brick by quiet brick. Courtrooms learned my voice. Opinions carried my name. Then, the envelope arrived. Heavy cream, silver crest. My brother's wedding at Greybridge Estate. And tucked inside, a secret note from my mother. Please come. They do not know I invited you. I told myself I would walk in to prove them wrong. I was wrong about that, too. At the rehearsal dinner, his fiancée crossed the garden, eyes bright with professional respect, and bowed her head the way young lawyers do. Your Honor, she said, clear as a bell, I did not know you would be here. The lawn fell silent. My brother's smile cracked. They tried to write me out of the story. They forgot I learned how to hold a pen. It sat on my desk like something that wanted to be dangerous. Cream paper, silver seal, the Whitmore crest I knew by heart. My clerk, Diane, slid it in with the morning mail and a polite smile. She probably thought it was another gala invitation. She was new, she did not know the Whitmore crest meant weather. Judge Whitmore, she said, peeking in, your 10 o'clock is ready. Thank you, I answered, fingers hovering over the seal. I should have tossed it into the shred bin and called it prudence. Instead, I put it in the drawer as if paper could not haunt wood. The hearing that followed was hard. Parents with tired faces, a child with a backpack too small for the weight he carried. I did the work. I spoke carefully, like law can be a blanket if you tuck it in at the corners. When the room emptied, I was still holding my breath. Only then did I open the envelope. The script was ornamental. The names were not. Jacob Alexander Whitmore and Lydia May Park request the honor. The venue was Greybridge Estate, a place I knew the way you know a childhood field, by the shape of the light. Tucked behind the card lay a note with my mother's rounded hand. Elara, please come. I miss you. Your father and Jacob do not know I sent this. Elara, not Ellie, not the child she used to braid too tightly. I poured a measure of the rye my grandfather kept for serious thoughts and stared at that please until it stopped ringing. My phone buzzed. Tessa, the one friend who has never once asked me to be smaller. You got it? Yes. You are going, she wrote. A ruling, not a question. Head high. The robe is not the only thing that fits you. I wanted to be brave. I wanted to be something else more, uninterested. Both could not live in the same chest. I took another sip and opened my laptop. Lydia Park Attorney went into the search bar. Her photo glowed back. Sharp, kind eyes, hair pulled back like she had things to do. Public interest work, housing, elders, names of clients who do not own buildings, only stories. I scrolled and froze on a familiar caption. She had argued in my courtroom 8 months earlier. I had ruled for a community center that would have been bulldozed into luxury silence. She had thanked me with professional grace. She had not flinched at my last name. She did not know it was hers to flinch at. I closed the laptop and the past tried to open. Gold frames, white coats. The way my father said legacy like a door only opened inward. 5 years since he told me not to come home. 5 years of his voice in my head anyway. I drove to Stonebridge Cemetery as the light softened. My grandfather's headstone was the quietest thing in the row. Samuel James Whitmore, etched neat and firm. I brushed the grass away the way you would smooth a lapel. I do not know whether to go, I said. Part of me wants to see Jacob's face when he learns what I became.
Part of me wants to be kinder than that.
Wind moved through the oaks like a gentle audience. I remembered the last time I saw my grandfather awake. Hospital room, the smell of metal and lemon. He pressed a small sealed letter into my hand. Open when you are ready to face them without anger. I kept it for 3 years, the way some people keep winters. That night at my kitchen table, I broke the seal. His hand shook on the page, but his voice did not. Power is not making people small, Lark. He called me Lark when he did not want me to forget I could fly. Power is standing tall without putting your foot on anyone else. I sent my reply to my mother from an address she alone had. 4 words. I will be there. No exclamation marks. They are a kind of apology. The next day I drove to the house my grandfather left me, the only Whitmore place that did not ask me to be someone else. The study still smelled like pipe tobacco and old arguments. In the bottom drawer of the desk, I found a photo album I had never opened. There was Jacob, grin unbreakable, arms slung around a girl with green ribbons in her braids. There I was, looking at him like he invented summer. We had been a story once, before rounds with our father turned Jacob into a comet and me into a caution. Before the Thanksgiving where my brother raised a glass and declared I would never matter unless I wore the family white coat. I can still feel the napkin in my hand. The way setting it down felt like putting a flag on a new country. I put the album away. I ironed a forest green dress Tessa bullied me into buying. The fabric said, "I am not here to match your curtains." I placed my grandfather's pocket watch in the inner pocket of my coat. It ticked against my palm like a pulse I could borrow. Graybridge lay beyond a curve of oaks that made their own cathedral. As I turned in under the wrought iron arch, my hands tightened on the wheel and then loosened. I was not a girl being summoned. I was a judge arriving on time.
Graybridge Estate likes to pretend it does not belong to people. It belongs to light, to white tents in spring, to string lights in summer that make even careful people reckless. I parked beside a row of cars that cost more than honesty and stepped into the smell of cut roses and planning. "Elara!" My mother's voice from a side path. Helen Whitmore in a dress the color of rain and eyes that looked like she had not slept. She touched my shoulders as if greeting a skittish horse. "You came!" I said I would. I let her hug me the way you let a wave touch your ankles. There was relief in it. There was apology. There was also the quick dart of her gaze toward the lawn, where voices had the lift of rehearsal. "Your father is inside with the caterers," she said, lowering her voice as if walls were witnesses. "Jacob is with the planner at the arch." "You look beautiful," she added, and for the first time in years it sounded like she meant it for me and not for the room. Cousin Avery materialized with a flute of champagne and a face made for gossip. "I thought you declined," she blurted, then remembered how to be a person. "I mean, you look incredible." "I changed my mind," I said. It came out like, I changed my life. We walked toward the rehearsal site. A spill of relatives noticed me in waves. Aunt June's glass trembled. 2 colleagues of my father did the soft whisper behind a hand that thinks it hides the sound. I nodded like a diplomat. Polite, bored. Jacob stood near an arch of white roses, handsome in the polished way that reflects other people. He gestured at the florist like confidence was a baton. I inhaled slowly. I had 100 versions of this confrontation rehearsed. None of them included what happened next. Lydia Park looked up from her phone, her face lit with the clean recognition of a professional seeing a mentor in the wild. She came straight across the grass, that little respectful dip at the knee she does when she addresses a bench out of habit. "Your Honor," she said, bright and warm. "I did not know you would be here." The air around us changed temperature. Heads turned with the efficiency of a choir. Jacob's expression slid from confusion to calculation to horror. Our eyes met over Lydia's shoulder. His mouth opened, then remembered where we were. "Judge Whitmore is a family friend," Lydia said, beaming at the tidy coincidence she believed she had discovered. "Not exactly," I said, eyes still on my brother. "We are related." Helen's hand found my arm. "Elara is Jacob's sister," she said. Not a bomb, a sentence. But a sentence can change a room. Lydia's smile faltered, then returned in a different shape. "Sister?"
She turned to Jacob, anger starting to bloom. "You told me your sister could not handle medical school and left. You never said she was—" "A judge," someone murmured behind us, and the word rolled through the lawn like a small wave. Jacob attempted a laugh. It sounded like a cough that forgot its purpose. "Ilara has always been unconventional," he offered, as if calling a storm breezy could change the boat. "Unconventional?" Lydia's voice sharpened. "Her rulings on community impact are taught in clinics. I have cited her opinions in my briefs. You reduced your sister to a cautionary tale because she chose another way to help." My father walked out from the house then, skin pale under the porch light. Dr. Richard Whitmore still moved like a man who expected doors to open. He saw me, paused, and in that heartbeat I was 12 and he was a disappointment in a suit. Then memory reset. I remembered the oaths I took. I remembered the people who cried in relief when I signed my name. "Father," Jacob said, a plea tucked inside the word. "Did you know?" "Helen mentioned the possibility," my father said, gaze clinical, voice careful. "You look well, Ilara." "I am well," I answered. "Not warm, not cold. True." Lydia slid off her ring and placed it in Jacob's hand with the kind precision of a surgeon setting down a scalpel. "I need time to think," she said quietly. "This is not about your sister. This is about your honesty." She walked toward the guest house without drama. The chorus of relatives realized they had been rude and pretended to talk about flower choices. My mother stood taller. My father looked at me like a chart he wanted to read correctly for the first time. "You have done well for yourself," he said at last, as if the compliment might break a fever. "Yes," I said. "I have." Dinner was a study in chairs that wished to be elsewhere. Jacob did not appear until the soup. He picked at his food like he was mad at it. An old colleague tried a toast. "To the black sheep who turned out to be the star." "Please do not," I said gently, but glasses were already lifting. "She is not a star," Jacob snapped. "She quit. When medicine became too difficult, she walked away. Let us not pretend that is admirable." I counted to 10 the way I tell parents to do before they speak in my courtroom. "I did not quit because medicine was too hard," I said. "I left because it was not my calling. Those are different roads." "Calling?" he scoffed. "The Whitmore legacy is medicine." "Grandfather chose business," I said. "He built clinics and endowed scholarships. You call that legacy too, when it suits you." My father cleared his throat. It sounded like a door opening an inch. "Jacob," he said, "you were competitive with your sister from the start. We encouraged it. I encouraged it. That was not always right." Jacob stared at him like the floor had moved. For once, he had no quick line to steer the room back into orbit around him. I excused myself before dessert and found the stone bench by the reflecting pool. The water held the arch and the stars like opinions, clearer from a distance. My grandfather used to sit here and tell me that power and gentleness are not enemies. He used to say my first full sentence was, "I can do it." Footsteps. Lydia, still in the simple white dress, still carrying herself like a person who had survived worse nights than this one. "Your mother said you might be here," she said, sitting with a sigh that told the truth. "I am sorry," I said. "I did not come to ruin a wedding." "You did not," she answered. "A lie did." She looked out at the water for a long time. What was he like as a boy? I smiled without meaning to. He read to me when I was sick. He threw his body in front of my locker when older kids teased my braces. He learned very early that being first in our house was the same as being loved. She nodded, eyes wet and clear. "People are not villains," she said. "They are hungry." "Yes," I said, "and sometimes they feed themselves the wrong things." We sat without speaking until the crickets sounded like a blanket. She stood. "Thank you, Your Honor," she said, then corrected herself and smiled. "Ilara." "Lydia," I said. "Names as bridges, not weapons. Morning came in through the curtains like it was not invited but was not leaving. I put on sneakers and a sweater and slipped out before the house remembered it had a script. The grounds were quiet. Staff were somewhere else, making trays look like effortlessness. Down by the pond, Lydia sat on the dock, feet above water that did not care about anyone's plans. Could not sleep? She shook her head. I told him to postpone, she said. He cried. I have never seen him do that. He said he lied because he wanted me to love him without conditions. That is not love, I said. That is fear wearing a nice tie. She laughed once, short, surprised. He also asked me what you were like as a sister. I told him I would ask you. I was relentless, I said, and I taught him how to make eggs without turning them into punishment. We did not get to say more. A groundsman sprinted toward us, panic wrapped in politeness. Miss Park, Judge Whitmore, your father, Dr. Whitmore. He collapsed. The library smelled like leather and lemon, like privilege pretending to be timeless. My father sat in an armchair, pale, jaw tight. A young surgeon from Jacob's Circle checked his pulse. Calm voice, efficient hands. Angina, likely, he said. We have called an ambulance. It is nothing, my father muttered, which is how he has classified every feeling he did not like since my earliest memory. Jacob burst in with a medical bag, flipping into a mode that has always looked like worship to me. He knelt, he checked, he gave orders that people obeyed because the words sounded like edges you could hold. Elara, my father said suddenly, voice thin but clear, come here. I did. He took my hand like it was a tether. He had not touched me in 5 years. I may not get another chance, he began. Do not be dramatic, Jacob said automatically, still counting. Numbers look better already. Be quiet, my father told him, gentle and absolute. He looked at me with eyes I recognized too well. I was wrong. I pushed you into a room that was not yours. When you walked out, I mistook courage for disrespect. I punished you for it. The floor under us shifted, not in the scary way, in the way you realize you were standing on an old map. Grandfather told me I would regret it, he added. The day after that Thanksgiving, he came to my office and said, Robert, you will ask for her forgiveness one day. I hope it is not too late. The paramedics arrived and filled the room with straps and questions. They took him, and suddenly we were a family in a hallway again. The way families look when someone they need might not come back the same. At Memorial, the waiting room clock performed its trick of moving and not moving. My mother filled out forms with a shaking pen. I took them and smoothed the fields like a pianist smoothing keys. Legal training is just organizing panic into boxes.
Jacob explained tests in a calm whisper, doctor to family, son to mother, brother to sister. The cardiologist emerged and spoke in paragraphs we could believe. Medication changes, monitoring, not a warning shot, a lesson. That evening, back at Greybridge, my mother led me into the small study she had begun to reclaim. The room was softer, her art on the walls, a plant on the sill that forgave overwatering. I have kept these hidden, she said, opening a box. News clippings, printouts of my rulings, photos of me in robes and flats and a jaw someone in our family did not make. I read them, she said, voice shaking into strength. I read all of them. I could not say it out loud here. I was not brave. I am trying to be now. Thank you, I said. The 2 words held more furniture than they looked like. There was a knock. Jacob stood in the doorway, eyes rimmed red, a watch in his hand. My grandfather's. The gold was worn where a thumb had loved it. Mother took it, he said, not unkindly. It was always yours. I kept it after the funeral because I was jealous of the way he looked at you. I am sorry. I took the watch and felt the weight of a small, honest thing. He loved you too.
Not like he loved you, Jacob said. And for once, it was not an accusation. It was just a fact without teeth. Lydia postponed, he added. We are not ending, we are pausing. She asked for truth as down payment. That sounds like her, I said. He hesitated. Is it true they are whispering your name for the higher bench? It is whisper, not thunder, I said. You would be good, he answered simply, and left me there with a watch and a room that did not feel like an enemy anymore. I slept like a person who had not in a long time. Not because everything was fixed, because nothing was pretending. In the morning I returned to my courtroom. The robe felt heavier and kinder. I wrote an opinion that did not try to be profound and ended up closer to it than many that did. Later, in chambers, Diane set down a stack of filings and a tiny vase with 2 daisies she did not mention. People see more than they say. Near dusk, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I see now. No name, no punctuation. Insight is not apology. I blocked it. Some seeds are not mine to water. I drove past the cemetery and stopped without meaning to. The air was evening clean. I knelt at the stone with my grandfather's name and set the pocket watch against it for a heartbeat, the way you set a newborn on a chest. You were right, I said, and I did not come to prove them wrong. I came to prove you right. When I stood, the world felt the same size. I was different in it. Monday looked ordinary. That was the trick. Ordinary hides aftershocks. I was back in chambers before 8. Coffee, case files, the lamp I turn on even when there is sun. It reminds me to be deliberate. Diane set a slim stack on my desk. 2 motions, 1 scheduling issue, and a florist called from Graybridge. She winced. I told them to email. Thank you, I said. We do not take calls about roses at court. First case, a custody dispute where both parents loved hard and clumsy. I listened. I asked small questions. I wrote notes in plain words, not Latin. I gave a ruling that left both sides a path back to each other if they chose to walk it. The mother cried with relief. Nobody expected. Between hearings, my phone pulsed with messages I did not open. Family group texts woke up after 5 years of sleep. Cousins discovered they had opinions. An aunt sent a prayer. An uncle sent a paragraph that tried to be advice and learned to be silence. At lunch, Tessa dropped by with a brown bag and a look that could cut and sew. How is your heart? She asked. Working, I said. Learning. Good, she said. Eat and breathe like you do not have to prove you deserve air. I smiled and actually ate. Small victories deserve verbs. An email from Lydia arrived mid-afternoon. 3 sentences. I postponed. I am grateful for clarity, even when it hurts. Thank you for your steadiness on and off the bench. No drama, just grown responsibility. I exhaled into that tone. A local blog posted a whisper of the Graybridge scene. No names, too many details. Courthouse gossip is a fast river. I did not chase it. I told Diane, no comment. She grinned. I wrote that on a sticky for myself when I started. I ended the day with a property dispute that looked like greed, but was fear. A landlord wanted to clear a building fast. Tenants wanted time to move and not drown. I split the time with conditions. I ordered the repairs that should have been done years ago. Balance is not always half. Sometimes it is fair. Back home, the house felt like it remembered me. I put my grandfather's watch on the mantel. I did not make a speech to the empty room. I reheated soup and sat at the table where I have taught myself to be both gentle and exact. My mother called. The call lasted 6 minutes. She said my father was resting. She said she was proud. She said the word proud like it was an object she had finally lifted. Thank you, I told her, and meant it. When I hung up, my body wanted to brace for the old ache. It did not arrive. In its place came something new and thinner than fear. I think it was space. Near midnight, a message from Jacob blinked on the screen. I am sorry for what I said at dinner. Period. Next line. Thank you for not making a show of it. Period again. It read like a man learning a new language, one word at a time. I typed back. I accept. We will practice. Send. I slept. Not like a baby. Babies do not sleep. I slept like a woman who trusted her breath to keep going. The legal aid benefit came on a Thursday. I did not want to go. I went anyway. Some rooms you revisit to prove to yourself they no longer own you. The ballroom tried to be gentle. Velvet curtains, soft lights, the hum of conversations about doing good with checks. I stood near the table where our court volunteers sat and spoke about eviction clinics and guardianship help. I kept it human. People give more when they feel useful. Across the room, I saw a face I recognized from hospital newsletters. Dr. Rowan Hale. Not ours. That was another life. This was Dr. Miriam Chen, Chief of Cardiology at Memorial. She had the calm of someone who speaks to frightened people for a living. She came over. Judge Whitmore, she said, I saw your father this week. He is stubborn. He is trying. He is my father, I said. We both smiled. She lowered her voice. He asked me what stress does to a heart that refuses to admit it feels. I told him the truth. Sometimes it teaches if it does not kill you first. That sounds like medicine, I said, and family. We were joined by our presiding judge, a man with a fondness for adjectives. He thanked legal aid with 5 of them. He nodded at me like a proud uncle. He asked me to say a few words. I keep words short when they are not mine to perform. I stepped to the small microphone. Thank you for standing where people fall, I said. Thank you for choosing paperwork over applause. Thank you for building ladders where there used to be walls. That was all. It was enough. Applause is loud when it is honest. After the speech, a woman my mother's age touched my sleeve. My daughter got out of a bad lease because of your guide, she said, eyes wet. The library printed it for free. Thank you. Libraries save us, I said. I just write footnotes. Near the dessert table, I found Lydia surrounded by interns who looked at her the way firefighters look at water. She excused herself and walked over. How is your father? She asked. Stable, I said. Learning to be a person. She laughed. A hard specialty. We both looked at the posters on the wall. A line caught our eyes at the same time. Justice is an everyday verb. Lydia nodded. That is the work, she said. On my way out, my phone buzzed. A message from a number labeled home. It used to mean the Whitmore estate. Now it is my mother's phone. Can you come to dinner next week? Just us. No theater. Yes, I replied. It felt like signing a reasonable order. The following Tuesday, we ate at a small bistro, not a club with oil paintings that watch you chew. My mother wore a simple sweater. She looked pretty and tired and real. Your father wants to make amends, she said. He does not know how. He can start with accurate sentences, I said. No excuses inside them. She nodded. He has a list. He is a list person. A pause. He told Jacob he could choose a different path and still be his son. I exhaled a breath I did not know I was holding. Good. He also asked about you, she added. It sounded like curiosity, not surveillance. Progress comes in ridiculous sizes. I took it. We split an apple tart. We argued politely about who would pay. The server smiled the way servers do when they see families trying. On Friday, the hospital foundation held a small reception. I would have skipped it. My mother asked me to come for 15 minutes. I told myself I would leave at 20. That is called compromise. The room was glossy. The string quartet did its best to make money sound noble. My father stood at the podium to introduce a new patient scholarship program. He spotted me near the back. He paused. That pause traveled through the room like weather. This fund, he said, exists because people in this city believe health belongs to everyone. My daughter reminds me daily that justice belongs to everyone too. He looked at me. He did not look away. Judge Ilara Whitmore. People turned. Some clapped. Some took a second to realize they had the wrong script. My father did not perform pride. He practiced it. I nodded once. The ground under my feet did not tilt. That is how I knew something had changed. On the way out, a board member tried to corner me into a photo. "We love powerful families," she said.
We love hard work, I answered, and kept walking.
Back home, I fed the plant I always forget to feed. It did not die. That felt like mercy. We met at the family center 2 neighborhoods away. Neutral ground, comfortable chairs, a water cooler that hummed like a very calm person. No portraits on the walls to tell us who to be. The facilitator's name was Ms. Reed. She had a voice like an early songbird. She laid the rules on the table with 2 pens. "Short statements," she said. "No cross-examination. We are not in court." Jacob arrived first. Dark circles. No theater. He sat and looked at the pens like they were choices. My father came 10 minutes later, on time for him. He wore a sweater. I had rarely seen him in knit. It made him look like someone who could learn. Ms. Reed asked us to write 1 sentence each. What I did. Not why. Not who made me. Just the thing. We wrote. We read aloud. "I spoke about my sister as if success only wore a white coat," Jacob said. His voice did not crack. It steadied. "I withdrew support when my daughter chose another path," my father said. "I made love conditional and called it standards. I left without explaining that staying would have broken something inside me," I said. "I let silence do the work of truth." We sat in the hush those sentences deserved. "Now a second sentence," Ms. Reed said. "What I will do different next." We wrote. We read. "I will stop measuring love by headlines," Jacob said. "I will ask before I assume. I will apologize without a speech. I will say I am proud when it is true," my father said. "I will not make her effort invisible because it does not look like mine. I will meet once a month," I said. "Coffee. Public place. 1 hour. We will practice being family without old roles." Ms. Reed nodded. "You have made a plan," she said. "Plans are promises with calendars." After the session in the parking lot, Jacob kicked at a leaf like a boy. "Lydia sends her regards," he said. We talk. Slowly. She asked how your courtroom is so calm. "It is not," I said. "I am." He smiled. "It landed better than the last time. I am applying for a fellowship," he added. "Rural surgery, fewer machines, more hands. It is not chief of anything. It feels like work worth doing." "Good," I said. "Tell him." "Then do it anyway." We both laughed because that was unfair and true. My father walked up, hands in pockets like a man in a painting who just stepped out to breathe. "Ilara," he said, "would you come to dinner Sunday? No show, just stew." "Stew is my favorite performance," I said. "Yes." On Sunday, their kitchen smelled like time and decision. The formal dining room door was closed. We ate at the scarred table where my mother used to roll out pie crusts on summer mornings when nobody was watching. We spoke about small things, the weather, a book my mother was reading, a nurse who had been nominated for an award. Small things are bridges when the river is wide. After dinner, I stood at the sink and washed dishes with my father. He rinsed. I stacked. We did not talk. The clink of plates was a language old as kitchens. He dried his hands. "Your middle name," he said, surprising us both. "Did you keep my father's?" "Yes," I said. "James, in my signature." He nodded once. His eyes shone and did not spill. "Thank you," he said. The 2 words carried years. I could lift them. Later that night, I drafted a tiny piece for our court's website. Title, "How to Speak in Hard Rooms." It had 3 lines. Say what you did, say what you will do. Keep it small enough to keep. I printed a copy and taped it inside my kitchen cabinet, next to a recipe for soup. next to a photo of me and a boy with a gap-toothed grin at a pond that no longer scares me. Before bed, I played with the pocket watch in my palm and listened to its steady tick. I imagined my grandfather sitting in some impossible bleachers, hands folded, proud and a little amused. My phone buzzed one more time. Tessa.
How is it going?
We are building, I wrote.
Keep going, she wrote back. And eat breakfast tomorrow. Real food, not courtroom coffee.
Yes, Judge Tessa, I said into the empty room, smiling. I slept with the window cracked. The night carried the city in and did not ask if we were ready. We were. The email subject line was plain, panel interview schedule. The body was not. It listed names that could open or close a career with a question and a nod. My possible elevation had moved from whisper to paperwork. Ms. Alvarez, the counsel assigned to shepherd me through the process, briefed me in sentences that felt like sturdy shoes. They will ask about temperament. They will ask about reversals. They will ask about bias. They may ask about your family. Answer as a judge, not as a daughter. As a human first, I said. That too, she allowed with a small smile. I prepared by cleaning. I always do. I cleared my desk. I cleared my mind. I cleared a shelf at home and placed 3 objects on it: my grandfather's pocket watch, a library card, and a handwritten note from a mother who once sat in my courtroom and wrote, "Thank you for making us feel seen." The first interview was in a windowed room where sunlight tried to be kind and succeeded. A former prosecutor asked about sentencing philosophy. A public defender asked about discretion. An academic asked whether I believed law can be merciful. It can be, I said, if the humans inside it are. A senator with a voice like gravel cleared her throat. Judge Whitmore, some say your rulings favor community over commerce. I try to favor the facts, I answered. Sometimes the facts speak with the voice of a family. Sometimes they speak with the voice of a ledger. I listen to both and sign my name to the balance. She nodded like she had expected a speech and got a sentence she could keep. Then came the question Ms. Alvarez predicted and I dreaded. You have a well-known family in medicine, another senator said. Your father is a prominent physician. Has family tension ever affected your work? My hands stayed flat on the table. It taught me where to place a boundary, I said. It taught me to name conflicts out loud, and then recuse or proceed with clarity. It taught me that legacy without integrity is theater. No one spoke for a beat. The court reporter looked up as if to mark the moment with her eyes as well as her keys. Between interviews, I walked, past portraits of men who frowned kindly, past clerks who have already learned to move at the speed of need. In a quiet corridor, my phone buzzed. A message from my mother. You do not need our blessing to shine, but I am sending it anyway. Another message followed, from my father. I will answer if they call. I will tell them the truth. You carry the Whitmore name better than I ever taught you to. I stood still and let those sentences sit where the ache used to live. That night, Tessa insisted on pasta and laughter. You were not auditioning for sainthood, she said. You were offering competence. They can smell that from across a city. Do you think they will vote yes? I asked. I think you already did, she said. They will catch up. The next morning, I returned to the courthouse I already loved. The docket did not care about panels or votes. It cared about 2 neighbors and a fence. It cared about a grandmother and a missing check. It cared about a couple who were better parents together than apart, and did not know how to stay civil long enough to see it. I ruled. I explained. I wrote carefully. When a ruling is right, the pen feels lighter. Late afternoon, an email pinged again. Community Bar Association endorsement, yes. The note from their president ended with a line I read twice. We endorse your work because it makes our work easier to believe in. I printed it and slipped it into the binder pocket I call good words. Not because I need applause, because on dark weeks, reminders are medicine. That evening, I walked the long way home.
The city breathed in and out. A string trio played at the corner near the bookstore. They were not perfect. They were joyful. I left a bill in the open case and thought about rooms I used to fear. On my porch, a small package waited. No return address. Inside, a photo of me and Jacob as children, sitting on the Gray Bridge dock with our toes above the water and our faces like clean windows. On the back, my mother had written, "I am learning to remember us kindly." I put it on the shelf beside the watch and the library card. Old rooms, new light. A developer tried to turn a block into a brochure. The block answered with people and leases and a church that hosted free dinners on Fridays. The case came to me like a storm cloud with paperwork. Lydia appeared at counsel table with a team of younger lawyers and a folder thick with exhibits tucked into an honest satchel. Across the aisle, a silk-tied partner adjusted his cufflinks like a ritual. "Call your first witness," I said. They called a janitor who had kept keys and dignity through 3 owners. They called a teacher who ran an after-school chess program in a room that smelled like chalk and safety. They called a nurse who said with quiet fire that moving clinics moves outcomes. When the partner objected to relevance, I overruled. The human cost is relevant when the law says it is. When it was the defense's turn, they brought a planner with charts. The charts looked like airbrushed futures. I asked about foundation cracks and lead paint. Charts lose patience quickly when asked to speak about rot. After testimony, I took it under advisement. I do not rush when the ground is crowded. I read the lease language twice. I read the statute 3 times. I read my own precedent from the community center case. Then I wrote. The decision was not flashy. It did not try to decorate itself. It held the developer to the terms they had signed. It gave tenants time and money to move if they chose. It ordered repairs if the developer insisted they stay. It recognized the church's reliance interest in a space that had fed bodies and spirits. It drew a map the parties could follow without a war. When I finished, I felt that small click in the chest that means, yes, that is the shape. In the corridor, after I read the order on the record, Lydia approached, with the careful distance lawyers keep from judges who are still wearing the day. "Your Honor," she said, "thank you for writing it so people can understand it." "Judges write for humans," I said, "or we should." She hesitated, then added, "My mother used to help in that Friday kitchen. She is gone now. That room is where I learned what help smells like. I am grateful it will stay open a little longer." "You did the work," I said. I signed. She smiled like a person who knows how to share credit. 2 days later, I found a photocopy of the order tacked to a bulletin board at the church. Someone had written in the margin, in a hand like a dancer, "We have time. Use it well." That is the best reading of a ruling I have ever seen. Word of the decision traveled faster than my comfort. A local paper ran a tidy piece. My Chambers phone rang too much. Diane became a gate, kind and firm. "No comment," she said, like a prayer. In the middle of the noise, Jacob texted a photo of a clinic tent in a dusty field. "I set a broken arm today with a flashlight and a calm voice," he wrote. I felt useful in a new way. Then, a second line. "I read your order. I am proud. I am learning that we were both trying to save people all along." My reply was simple. Keep going. That weekend, the church invited anyone who had signed anything in court to dinner. I went, quietly, and took a seat in the back. Lydia stood near the serving line, laughing with a kid who had learned how to play bishop without losing his queen. She saw me, lifted a ladle in a salute that was not showy, and kept serving. A woman with a tired face and a fierce jaw sat across from me with a plate of stew that could have healed a cold policy. "You are the judge?" she asked. "Yes," I said. "You wrote that thing, so I can read it to my mother without a lawyer," she said. "That matters." "It should be the rule," I said, "not the exception." She stabbed a piece of carrot with conviction. "Make it the rule, then." "I am trying," I said. "Good," she said. "We will bring cake." We ate. We talked about rent and the best thrift shop for work pants and where to get a winter coat for a teenager who outgrew one in a month. Justice looks like that more often than gavels. On my way out, an older man stopped me at the door. "Tell your father," he said, "that hearts get better at their jobs when the rest of the body is not carrying secrets." "I will," I said, and I did. The wedding did not happen. Something else did. Lydia and Jacob sent a joint message to the guests the morning of the day that would have been vows. We are not canceling each other. We are postponing a ceremony until truth and trust catch up to love. The note asked people to donate food to the Friday kitchen in lieu of flowers. Some grumbled, most complied. You can teach a room new manners if you provide the script. My mother called and said, "Come to Greybridge at noon, not the lawn, the small chapel." Her voice had the steadiness of someone who has rehearsed what she is about to do and decided to do it anyway. The chapel was stone and sunlight, and pews that knew how to hold a spine. A modest crowd filled the front half. Family, a few colleagues, not the glossy entourage. Tessa sat with me and squeezed my hand once, a gavel of friendship. My father stood at the front with a folded paper and no podium. He looked smaller, and therefore larger. "Thank you for coming," he began.
We asked you here to tell the truth out loud, so we do not have to carry it alone. He glanced at Jacob. He glanced at me. Then he kept going. "My daughter did not fail," he said. The words slow and careful. I failed her. I made love a prize for obedience. I told a capable child that her gifts were only valid if they wore my coat. She became a judge while I pretended I did not see. That pretense is over. Sound moved through the room like weather. Some people shifted. Some held perfectly still, as if motion might make the admission bounce. "My son is a good doctor," my father continued. "And for a long time he defined goodness as winning. He is learning another definition. It is called service." He took a breath that sounded like air meeting lungs that had been waiting. "Helen and I are trying to become parents you can say out loud without flinching. This is not an apology tour. This is an invitation to see us as we are, not as we have performed." He stepped back. My mother stepped forward. She held no paper. "I am sorry I chose peace over courage for so long," she said. "I am sorry I loved my child in private and left her alone in public." Then Lydia stood. She did not owe the room anything. She offered something anyway. "I am postponing a wedding because I want a marriage," she said. "I want truth more than I want photos. If you love us, you will accept that math." She looked at me. "Your Honor," she said, then smiled and corrected. "Ilara, will you say something about what we do next when we stop whispering?" I walked to the front with the pocket watch heavy in my coat and the church light warm on my face. I do not make speeches at family altars. I made a list. "First," I said, "we will speak in accurate sentences. No more stories that make one person small so another can feel large. Second, we will make amends that have weight. Not flowers, not posts, actions and calendars. Third, we will accept that love without control is messy and better." I turned to Jacob. "You will do the work, not for the room, for the person you look at in the mirror when you brush your teeth at midnight." I turned to my parents. "You will choose curiosity over certainty again and again until it becomes a habit." I turned to Lydia. "You will protect your bright self with boundaries and let love meet you there." I turned to the pews. "And the rest of you will stop using our story as a parlor game." There was a pause that felt like a breath before a verdict. Then, Aunt June started to clap, tentative and real. It grew, not loud but long. Not for theater, for relief. After, in the small courtyard, people did what people do when they have heard truth. They brought food. They asked practical questions. They looked for ways to help that did not involve advice. A cousin pressed a card into my hand that said, "If you ever want to start a scholarship for court-involved kids who need bus passes and lunch money, we will fund the first year."
I said yes on the spot. The first act of any good program is a bus pass. Jacob approached with empty hands and a full face. "Thank you," he said simply. "You did the brave part," I answered. "You let the room see you." "I hated it," he admitted. "It felt like being barefoot on gravel." "It will feel like grass later," I said. "Keep walking." He nodded. "Lydia and I are going to the Friday kitchen after this. We will cut onions and listen." "Good," I said. "Bring cake." My father came last. He did not try to hug. He did not try to explain. "I am going to speak to my department this week," he said. "I will talk about how pride can set fractures that never show up on scans. I will ask them to screen for loneliness when they screen for blood pressure." "That would be a start," I said. "Bring charts. They like charts." He smiled like a man who just learned a joke is not an attack.
I will. That evening at home, I opened the Good Words binder and added 3 new things: the Bar Association letter, a printout of the church note, and a scrap of paper torn from my mother's pocket with her new phone number in her hand, not the house line. I brewed tea. I played with the watch. I let the quiet sit. Before bed, I posted a single paragraph to the court's resource page: how to apologize in public without turning it into a performance. 3 lines again. Say what you did. Say how you will repair. Say when you will report back. The next morning, the sun came up like it always does. It did not care about our speeches. It warmed the porch anyway. I took my mug outside and stood there a long time, letting the light find the lines of my face that used to look like someone else's and now look like mine. The morning of the vote broke gray and steady, the kind of sky that refuses to foreshadow. I liked that. I did not need omens, I needed quorum. Ms. Alvarez met me in a corridor polished by generations of careful shoes. "Breathe from your ribs," she said. "Answer like you always do. Short, true, complete." "Short, true, complete," I echoed, as if we were about to scrub in. Inside, the committee chair struck wood and the room remembered its purpose. A clerk called the roll. The microphones waited like patient witnesses. A senator with a veteran's posture congratulated me on plain writing. "Our constituents read your orders without a translator," she said. "Keep that." "I will," I said. "Law belongs to readers." Another asked about a case where I denied a flashy injunction and offered a working plan instead. Some called that timid. "It was responsible," I said. "Emergency orders are scalpels. This one needed stitches and time." A third asked about bias. He glanced at my bio, then at me. "When your family name carries power, how do you make sure it does not carry you?" "I name it out loud," I said. "Then I build a record strong enough to hold what I sign." Legacy is background. Integrity is handwriting. Hands shuffled paper, heads bent. The room moved on. During a recess, I stood by a window that framed nothing but sky and my reflection. My phone buzzed. A photo from Jacob. Him in a clinic, hair tucked in a blue cap, a child grinning through a sling he had just fitted. 12 stitches, no tears, he wrote. She taught me to count in Spanish while I worked. Progress report. Humility increasing. I smiled into the glass like someone trying on relief. The committee reconvened. Speeches bloomed. A former opponent rose and surprised us both. "I have lost cases before Judge Whitmore," she said, "and I left the courtroom understanding why. That is not common. It should be." The vote came without trumpet. All those in favor, hands. Opposed, fewer hands. The chair announced the tally. The word confirmed landed like clean rain. Outside, the air tasted new. Tessa tackled me in a hug that would have failed every decorum test and passed every human one. "You did not audition," she said into my shoulder. "You told the truth.
They finally agreed. We walked to the steps where cameras were learning our faces. Ms. Alvarez whispered, "A statement, then you vanish. 30 seconds." I stepped to the microphones. "Thank you," I said. "Thank you to the people who taught me that justice is a verb, not a throne. Thank you to the families who trusted me with their hardest days. I will keep writing so that you can read. I will keep deciding so that you can live." I stopped there, before the music turned purple. That night, I went home to my small kitchen and made toast and eggs, because ceremony is not dinner. I set my grandfather's watch on the counter and listened to it clip away the old story. My mother texted a photo of a cake she had baked without a decorator's help. The frosting said in wobbly letters, "We are proud," that we had taken half a lifetime to earn. Later, my father called from the quiet of his study.
"They asked me for comment," he said. "I said you learned to wield power without making people small. Your grandfather would call that medicine."
"Thank you," I said. 2 words that now meant something other than surrender. I slept a sleep that did not ask for permission. The first morning on the new court felt like first day of school weather, bright but not boastful. Chambers were larger. The robe hung heavier in my hands. The calendar did not care. It kept its promises. My clerk, Jonah, brought coffee and a stack of briefs organized by tabs the color of good ideas. "Welcome," he said, nervous and pleased. "We already love your template." "I love a template," I confessed. "It is a fence with a gate." The first argument was a tangle with faces, an hour's wage dispute that would decide the difference between groceries and humiliation for thousands. Counsel on one side wore a suit that tried to apologize for nothing. Counsel on the other side wore a suit that had been steamed by resolve. I asked simple questions that took complex answers to earn. "If the statute says this," I said, "what happens to the worker whose shift ends late every night because the software wants to save the company money?" The lawyer paused. His partner whispered. The truth blinked like a turn signal. We took the case under advisement. We conferred. We argued our arguments. I wrote a draft that held both the letter and a hand outstretched to the lives behind it. Jonah brought me a sticky note that said, "Footnote 2 cites are clean. Footnote 3 needs plainer words." I fixed the words. I cut the footnote. Law is better when it breathes. At lunch, the presiding judge welcomed me with a sandwich and a story. "The best thing I ever did," she said, "was change my mind in a published opinion and explain why. It taught the bar that we are not gods.
It taught me that courage can be an edit." In the afternoon, a small case arrived with a loud heartbeat. A guardianship dispute between 2 sisters who loved their mother enough to scream. I ordered mediation and, because mediation is not magic, added a line in large print. "Talk to each other like you want to be invited to Thanksgiving." Sometimes the law needs to sound like a kitchen. Leaving the courthouse, I saw Lydia on the steps with a client who clutched a manila folder the way pilgrims used to clutch icons. They spoke softly. Lydia looked up and nodded. There was no need for a speech. That evening, I met my parents for stew on a Wednesday because progress lives in ordinary places. We ate at the scarred table. We did not tell the story of who we used to be. We washed dishes without choreography and did not break a single plate. My father asked a question he would not have asked a year ago. "What did you learn today?" "That the hardest part of this job is taking power without letting it take you," I said. "And that relief looks the same on every face when the ruling says, you can stay." He nodded like a student who now enjoys the subject. "I told my residents your apology list," he said. "The one you posted? They hated it. Then they loved it," he smirked. "That is how you know it worked." When I got home, a box waited on my porch. Inside, a cheap plastic gavel, a handwritten note from a 3rd grade class, and drawings of me as a superhero with a cape made of paper.
"Thank you for making rules that help," the note said, every vowel earnest. I propped one drawing against the lamp. The cape made me laugh. The paper felt right. The next day, a letter from a rural hospital arrived, addressed to Judge Ilara Whitmore, who listens. The envelope held a photograph. Jacob leading a circle of nurses through a drill in a gym that doubled as an operating theater. On the back, he had written, "It is not glamorous, it is good."
Underneath, one more line. "Tell Father I love him even when he is not proud. But he is learning, so maybe I will not have to write that forever." I told him. My father listened like a man practicing. On Friday, the opinion in the wage case went live. It used verbs you could point to with a finger and say, "That is what happens now." The inbox flooded. Some praise, some rage. Some invitations to talk on camera that Diane declined before I could say "no comment" out loud. I put the printed opinion into good words anyway. Not because it was perfect, but because it tried in public to be decent. Saturday morning, Tessa dragged me to the farmer's market. "We are touching tomatoes," she said. "You need produce and strangers. Doctors would prescribe it if they could bill for it." At the market, a man with kind shoulders stopped me. "My son's pay changed because of your ruling," he said. "He bought groceries without calling me first." I cried in my car. "That is embarrassing." "It is human," I said. He laughed like I had given him permission to keep his tears. We bought apples. We bought flowers we did not need. We walked home under a sky that finally remembered how to be blue again. The scholarship idea born in a chapel courtyard became a blueprint by autumn. Tessa took the budget and made it obey. Lydia built the application with questions that asked for truth, not theater. My mother called 3 donors and said the sentence she had been practicing. "This is not charity. This is fairness with a plan." They said yes because confidence sounds like a door opening. We named it the Pocket Watch Fund, after the thing I carry that tells me time is a tool. It would pay for bus fares, exam fees, document copies, the tiny hurdles that make big goals feel impossible. No essays, no performances, just need, verified by the quiet people who do the work. Librarians, social workers, public defenders, school secretaries who know who is going hungry. At the launch in a library meeting room, there were no big checks, just small ones that add up. My father sat in the second row holding a plate of cookies like a peace flag. Jacob sent a video from a clinic break room. Hair a mess, smile clean. "Donate," he said to the phone. "If a bus pass gets a kid to court on time, that is medicine too." We funded the first applications before the coffee cooled. A grandmother got a ride share to a hearing that decided custody the right way. A teenager paid the fee to get a birth certificate so a college could admit her. A man who had been sleeping in a shelter bought a phone card long enough to keep his job. I kept a ledger in a notebook with a green cover. Every time we funded a request, I wrote one line in plain language. 2 rides to probation check-in. 1 day's wages saved. 1 chance not missed. I read the ledger at night when headlines tried to tell me despair was efficient. At court, I kept learning. I reversed myself once on a small but stubborn issue and wrote the reason. I wrote it wrong. Counsel showed me a better reading. The law improved by admitting it. The inbox howled for a day. Then it quieted. A public defender sent me a 3-word email. "Thanks for honesty." On a Sunday afternoon, my mother invited me to clean the Graybridge attic, the room where families store things they cannot name. We found boxes of photographs, old awards, a set of medical journals that smelled like dust and ego. In a trunk, I discovered a stack of letters my grandfather had written to himself in his first year as a businessman. The first one began, "Today I chose to be a beginner." The last one ended, "If I ever forget why I left, remind me I promised to be brave." We brought the letters downstairs and read them with tea. My father listened from the doorway, arms folded, eyes wet, and said, "I forgot he was afraid." He sat with us. He read the last line out loud. He looked at me. He said nothing else. It was the best conversation we had that week. At the Friday kitchen, I chopped onions with Lydia until our eyes flooded and our hands learned each other's pace. Jacob showed up in a borrowed apron and learned that service means sweating without your name on the banner.
A boy I recognized from a bus pass application served soup like it was music. The room buzzed with verbs: cut, stir, carry, listen. A woman with blue nail polish took my empty pot and said, "Judge, you missed a spot." I scrubbed again. She nodded. Now it is justice. Over months, coffee with Jacob became a ritual with rules. We met at a diner where nobody cared who we were. We said one hard thing each and one good thing each. We left before the conversation frayed. We paid in cash and tipped with gratitude. Progress needs receipts. One afternoon, he arrived buzzing. "I invented a trick with a headlamp and a cracked mirror," he said. "It lets me check a wound in the field without a second pair of hands. It is ugly. It works." He slid a napkin across the table with a sketch that looked like hope. "File it," I said. "Share it anyway." He grinned. "Look at us," he said. "You writing footnotes that fix rent, me drawing cartoons that close wounds. Same job," I said. "We choose mercy. We practice competence." As winter drew close, I walked the pier with Tessa and let the cold teach my lungs something honest. The water did what it always does. It moved where it wanted. I thought about the first envelope, the first rehearsal dinner, the first "Your Honor" that broke a family play. That part of the story had finally stopped burning. It had become a lantern. On the last Friday before the year turned, the chapel where we stopped whispering hosted a different ceremony. No bouquets, no string quartet. The Friday kitchen held a thank you dinner for itself. At the end, the pastor asked if anyone had words. A boy of maybe 15 stood and cleared his throat. "I never had a bus pass," he said, "and I missed 2 appointments and a judge got mad. Then someone paid for the card. I went. The judge smiled. I did not know judges could smile. He looked at me, surprised to find me there. He smiled back. Now I think maybe I can smile too." We clapped like we were trying to keep him warm. After, he handed me a folded paper. Inside, a drawing of a pocket watch with the numbers replaced by verbs: read, sign, listen, rest, cook, call, learn, forgive, begin, 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 begin. I put it in the good words binder without adding a label. Some pages name themselves. On New Year's morning, I brewed coffee strong and black. I touched the watch. I opened my grandfather's letter again and read the line I could say by heart. "Power is standing tall without putting your foot on anyone else." I stood a little taller in my empty kitchen and did not step on anyone at all. Spring returned without asking us how we felt. The trees did their practiced miracle. The courthouse steps filled with habits and hope. On a Tuesday, I delivered an opinion in a case about school discipline that will not land on the front page. It will land on lunch tables and in backpacks where suspension notices used to live. We replaced automatic punishment with a ladder of choices. We wrote it so a parent could read it in a kitchen painted lemon and exhale. On a Wednesday, my father gave a grand rounds lecture titled, "What We Do Not Measure." He spoke about shame as a cardiac risk. He spoke about apologies as a clinical skill. He paused at the end and said, "My daughter taught me that. Not with a scolding, with a life." The residents clapped like people trying to unlearn and succeeded a little. On a Thursday, Jacob called from a county 2 hours away to say a child brought him a thank you rock she found in the parking lot. "She said it is a luck stone," he laughed. I told her I believed her. On a Friday, Lydia sent photos of the first cohort of the Pocket Watch Fund. A grid of faces of people who wanted to go from here to there and needed $12, not a speech. The caption said, "Time is on their side now." On a Saturday, my mother planted herbs behind the Graybridge kitchen. She labeled basil in her careful hand. She labeled thyme like she had forgiven it for reminding her of stew and apologies. On a Sunday, I sat on my porch with coffee and the city blessed me with the sound of a neighbor practicing trumpet poorly and bravely. I thought about rooms that used to own me, the dining room with the portrait and the speech, the banquet lawn with the white arch, the clean corridors with votes and microphones. They were doorways now. I could walk through them without shrinking to fit. My phone buzzed. Tessa, toast at 6? We have bread that will make you reconsider your entire personality. At 6, I wrote. Before I went inside, I opened the Good Words binder and added one last page, blank except for a single line at the top. Report back in 1 year. I did not know what it would hold. That is not fear anymore. That is invitation. I closed the binder. I set the watch. I locked the door. I left the porch light on, for myself, for whoever needed to see that someone was already home.